Welcome back, everyone. This is Brian Piper and Elias Ventura from NEA and Friends with Where Are They Now? The Industry Awards Finalists. Another episode. One I'm really excited about. But how you been?
Good.
Yeah. Working. Back to work.
For you, this week was rather intense, but it's Friday somewhere,
Yeah. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah. Beer 30 everywhere. But for anybody who doesn't know, I left Diamond back beginning of the year and spent some time finding a new home. I am with Soundstream and Precision Power now as
awesome.
The Harley Tech Manager, which is a brand new position that they created for me. So it's kind of cool to get to see what they're doing and be involved kind of on the ground floor of a lot of things with them.
It seems like you've done tech support once or twice before.
Yeah, I might know a little bit. And I might know a little bit about motorcycles now. So, it's definitely
what about like jigsaws? Are you good?
I own a jigsaw. I own a really nice jigsaw. I don't know that I use it that often, but I don't know if I could give you great tech support on fixing the jigsaw, but I could tell you how to use it.
I think our guest might know how to use a jigsaw or fancier.
Yeah, he's probably got those like newfangled jigsaws.
Like alien jigsaws?
Alien jigsaws. I bet you he does, yeah. I bet you he does.
Kind of excited for our guest. I, as a fanboy, have followed a lot of, crazy, wild, intense, jaw-dropping fabricators. And them. When I say jaw-dropping, sometimes I'll just be on social media. I'll be scrolling and I'm just like, wait, what?
Right.
I don't know how it goes together from just being a sales guy, but just seeing the intensity of these builds and like how in depth they get, and they seem overwhelming at times. It's probably a different mental workout for a lot of these guys, but it's always cool to see them finished.
Oh yeah, I mean the finished part is the best part, right?
Yeah.
I remember watching this guy from a little shop in Georgia when he was young and, a pain in the ass sometimes to a lot of people. And I know a lot of people probably thought he had a smart mouth, but, whatever. He was young and kind of arrogant like a lot of us were when we were younger. I think we've all been there. But watching him grow and not just as a fabricator, but watching him grow as a person and seeing how much different he is now versus how he was, the first couple times I saw him in person. Dude, this guy is amazing. He's fun to watch on Facebook, whether it's work or personal stuff. It's just a lot of fun to watch.
And the builds just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And better and better. And even if they're not big, they're so intricate.
Right.
Like the thought process and a lot of how some of the stuff was done. Like that stuff is, as a fabricator, we all know we have to think in steps, right? And when you're at step 10, you're thinking about step 20 or 30. And so to see what he does and to know that he had to be thinking about so many things ahead of where he got this part done, it's so cool. He just seems to have it organized. I'm sure it's not, but I have it in my head that he's got like this file cabinet of organization and it's like pristine. It's not shit run all over a desk. It's pristine, and it's probably not. He's probably laughing right now thinking about this, but he's probably hell no.
The way I see it mentally is, the Lego instruction manual where all those pages like this goes here, this goes here, this goes here.
Right.
That's how I feel like fabricators' brains operate. Just
and some of them are more detailed than others, and his is one of those. Yeah. All right, man. Well,
this should be exciting for all the fabricators out there, and people who follow each other's work. Our guest today is somebody you want to, definitely drool over the builds and maybe learn something from, if you're at any local events, when it comes to fab trainings and stuff like that. But, I think it's exciting that, from a fan following, one of our industry peers' work, being able to chat and kind of, pick up the mind. So.
Absolutely.
I say we bring him on in.
Let's do it.
Hello.
Justin.
So, everyone, Justin Marks.
Nubs.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't know you as that anymore, but that's how I always remember you.
There's literally probably 5 people that still call me Nubs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's
And I mean, I've known those people for 20 years. So
right. So those are the people that remember.
Yeah.
Well, welcome, man. Thank you for making the time to come on and join us in your very green corner there.
I have a fiance that likes plants.
Hey, that works.
It looks awesome. Yeah.
I mean, they create oxygen for you to breathe, so
it's true.
I guess that's a good thing, right? That's probably what feeds that brain of yours, so you're doing what you're doing the way you do it. He goes, "We'll go with that."
For sure.
No, this is exciting. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
It's one of those things like I was telling Brian, you do some badass stuff, and it's always jaw-dropping and exciting to see your work. So,
thank you.
Kudos to you, man.
I appreciate it.
I know it's probably a labor of love on a lot of these projects, so I can only imagine what a day in the world of Justin is,
It's different for sure. Car audio was a lot of fun for me, but getting into interior work has been a whole different challenge. And then that transitioning into managing a hot rod shop it's even bigger. There's even more going on. There's just a lot. So days are a lot.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just get into this real quick. So let's talk a little bit about your industry experience, like you kind of brushed on it there, and then let's finish that with what your current role is now.
Okay. I started, I'm not even going to call it installing. I started building things in my garage when I was 17, 18.
Yeah.
Had never put a radio in a car, had never done anything, but I was building enclosures for friends and amp racks. And, I always liked the building aspect of things. I got into car audio because that was an excuse to build stuff. I didn't care about car audio. I like music and I like, stereo systems, but I didn't get into this because I liked sound quality or, audio in general. I just really like building things. And it was the only place that I had ever found any sort of interest in continuing my creativity there. Got a job at a shop across the street from an apartment I lived in for less than $300 a week just to get my foot in the door. And I was sweeping parking lots and getting yelled at a lot and, just a do boy, shop bitch. And looking back, I don't think I would change it for anything. I kind of hopped around a couple of shops in Atlanta just trying to get work with people that were better than me. And I ended up at a shop 2004 to 2009, and I was pretty much the only installer fabricator there, and I had no way of learning. So I was really, really, really involved in the 12-volt insider and, Joey Knapp enforcing build pictures. To kind of reverse engineer what all of the people I looked up to did. And couldn't afford to go to training, couldn't afford to take the time off work. So just kind of got frustrated in the fact that, there's all these people that are bettering themselves and I can't even afford to do it. So it took a while for me to get to the point where I could, go to trainings and feel like I was actually being taught something.
Okay.
And once that happened, everything started changing. You know, once I got in a position where I was around the right people, I was learning the right things, my brain just kind of changed. Everything about the way that I looked at things started changing. And then in 2011, I fire sold my whole life and I moved to South Florida because I got a job offer from Jeremy Carlson to work with him and Mike Baker at Extreme Performance.
And how fast did you shit your pants when that job offer came in?
Man, we had been talking for a couple of weeks and we've been talking for a couple of weeks and I wasn't really sure how the conversation was going, but I knew that this was someone that I wanted to be in touch with. So I just, sent him a couple pictures of what I was building. I was in the middle of building an Iasca car. And again, for someone that doesn't really care about the car audio aspect of things, I developed a care for it. Because I knew that fabrication was involved.
Right.
And was building a car for a buddy of mine for Iasca and got a job offer. And I basically had 3 weeks to move. So I moved to South Florida, been in Georgia my whole life, moved to South Florida on a whim. And on my way down there, I got a call from the lady that I was getting a house rented through. And she was like, yeah, something happened and the house you tried to rent is already rented. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm an hour from that house, so you better figure something out. Ooh. So she found me another house, and luckily it was a seamless transition. And Jeremy and I, let me just preface this by saying I don't think I was ever good enough to even step foot in that shop and work with him, but it did everything for my career. It did everything for me personally. And Jeremy and I are still really good friends, and things didn't work out in Florida, and it is what it is. And I went back to Atlanta, and my brain changed. Everything about what I did prior was gone. Like the way that I thought, and everything about my experience in Florida with Jeremy was the absolute biggest game changer in my entire career.
That's awesome.
And I can just attribute it to the fact that he taught me just a completely different way to think. And I remember he had this was before lasers, but he had a ShopBot CNC, and I think he was using V-Carve or whatever was similar at the time in 2010. And he forced me to sit down and be completely uncomfortable and start learning 2D CAD. And I hated it. I hated every bit of it. I was like, I don't like this. It's not how I think. It's, obviously he was forcing me to be uncomfortable because I needed the growth. And at the time, the first couple of months I was fighting it, and it just turned into one of those things where I'm so appreciative of him and the fact that he did see something in me, whether I ever saw it or not, to kind of just start implementing those things into the way that I think. And things didn't work out. I left Florida, went back to Atlanta, and I felt like I went backwards. I was at a shop that didn't have CNC, didn't have the motivation or the drive to move forward or whatever. And I felt like I took a few steps back, but I had a whole different view on everything that I did. So I knew what I wanted. I just didn't know how to get there without going to training and without learning all of the, all the little things that you get taught. So once that started happening, I felt a lot more confident in getting all of the things and ideas in my head out and actually being able to build something that's, something to be proud of. And I still have issues with that, but I think like most of us, I'm my own worst critic, and I finish something and I tear it apart and I'm like, I need to do better, but I think that that's just part of growth. And I think that's part of being a perfectionist, knowing that you can't ever reach perfection anyway.
Right. While the rest of us are looking at what you built going, oh my God, holy shit.
And I think, and as much as I appreciate that, for sure, like I appreciate the fact that there are people that look at what I do like it's worth looking at, but I also do the same thing to all of my friends that are light years ahead of me. And I just think that there's tiers to this industry and fabrication and knowledge, right? Because
absolutely,
Jeremy was one of those people that just kept pushing and pushing and pushing every envelope possible, and look at him now.
Yeah.
It's crazy when your idols become your friends and you can literally call them and wish them happy birthday and just call and talk shit and see how they're doing. And I used to look up that dude in magazines and I'm like, I see these cars he's building and I'm like, what is happening? How is a human being doing this?
Right.
And, I went back to Atlanta, took a step back. I felt like, but I was comfortable in the job that I had. And I got a call from who used to be the manager at Titan in Nashville. And he was like, hey, I'm putting a team together. Would you move? And I'm like, I don't have anything in Atlanta. Sure. So I moved to Nashville and I moved here in 2017 to work for Titan Motoring.
Yeah.
And I worked for Titan for about 5 years. Great experience. Friends with a lot of people prior to going there, and then, met a bunch of new friends and whatever. And, I was over the retail car audio environment. I got to a point where like what I wanted out of myself, most car audio shops don't even know how to charge for.
Right.
So I was what I wanted for myself, the growth that I wanted for me just wasn't something that a everyday car audio shop could necessarily keep up with. And they can, but whether they wanted to or not, it's a different story.
Right.
And at the time, maybe they just didn't want to or didn't see the value in it or whatever. But, I had to make the moves that were best for me. And I ended up hearing about this hot rod shop that's 15 minutes from my house. And I had gone up there to help them do a little bit of design and rendering while I worked at Titan on a car that they were doing. And I walked in the shop and I'm like, man, like I want to work at a shop like this, So I texted one of the owners and I was like, hey, if you guys want like a full-time interior fabricator and have the means to like create that department, let me know. Cause I would like to do something like that. And I got a text back that said, this is your notice that's happening. We need that. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Real quick. How many of you watching this have ever in your wildest dreams thought you would be the guy that could walk into a place and go, hey, if you decide you want to do this, this, and this, let me know. And then they go, guess what? Because we've all had that dream.
Yeah. And it's the shop that I'm at it's so awesome because I get all of the support that I could possibly want from an owner. I hear horror stories, and I've been part of horror stories of shop owners that just don't want to help their techs, help their employees. They don't pay for training, and they just treat them replaceable. And I'm not replaceable. I don't care who you are. I will never let myself feel that way.
Right.
And I know what I can bring to the table. I have light years of stuff to learn, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Right. But I bring a lot to the table. And I want what's best for the shop that I'm at. But that only lasts so long if the shop doesn't support you, right? So I've been there for almost 3 years. And we went from no interior department, with the exception of my boss's wife, who does upholstery for seats and stuff, to full-blown builds, CNC router, laser, full wood shop, 14 3D printers. We have a lot going on.
Wow.
Do you have the walk-in printer yet? I call them the walk-in printer. They're those jumbo.
It's not the huge big rep, but it is a printer that will print 55 inches wide, 24 inches deep, and 31 inches tall.
Okay, so it's a walk-in printer.
It's a big printer. And then we have 11 bamboo filament printers and then 2 resin printers.
Wow.
And that whole printing side of things is still relatively new in the last year.
Yeah.
But my boss saw the potential in it. I bought the first 2 bamboos we had, and he was like, "How many more do you want?" And I was like, "How many do you want to buy?" You know? And he was like, "I don't know. You want 10?" I'm like, "Sure." So we just ordered 10 more, you know?
Wow.
So you got all these little parts printing all at the same time to do projects. So you've got...
and our printers are making money while they're printing. We charge $20 an hour per printer to print, you know? So we've made back the cost of every single printer and then some in the last 6 months.
Wow.
So it's just another tool, you know, it's just another tool that's going to work for you. And what you can gain from 3D design and printing, you just, you know, it's immeasurable. You know, you can't do a lot of that stuff by hand. And that's what I like. I love analog building. I love building by hand, but I love the fact that I can sit down at a computer, design something, print it, and it's a usable part, whether it's off a scan, not off a scan, whatever. And it's a usable part right there, you know?
Yeah. I love seeing that stuff in the bays nowadays. I get it's still very, you know, it's like this much of the industry as a whole.
Right.
But seeing, you know, thinking back to, you know, let's go back 2017, right? Everything we did was by hand. It was analog. There was very, very little CNC anything. And even at that point, you were limited to what you could do.
Yeah.
Because it was all routers.
Yep.
And maybe a handful of guys getting into lasers.
Yep.
But now with printing, like, there's nothing you can't build.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can't build with printing and lasers and CNC, whatever.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
It's incredible. I love it.
Yeah, I think that it's for me, I like the 3D modeling aspect of things more than I like physically like putting parts together and putting them in a car. I honestly, if you could pay me to sit and design shit all day, I would do that. Yeah. Because that's just kind of where my brain goes now, because I know that I can build it. I have the problem I have is with the design, right? Fusion is the hard part for me, which is why I think I'm just kind of stuck on just wanting to get better at it, and that being something that I would do every day if I could afford to do that. But I have to help run a shop, and you know, I have guys that do that. So at this point, it's just not in the cards for me, you know, which is fine. But you know, I play with it at home, and I invest. I still invest in myself, you know.
Sure.
I'll even go to the shop on Saturdays and sit on Fusion for 12 hours, you know. It's just something that I enjoy doing. It's challenging because I'm not any good at it. You know, I'm good enough to make parts at this point, but like I'm not good at people that are good compared to people that are good at Fusion. I'm not good. You know,
right.
Compared to people
people that take years of classes to get good at that stuff too.
100%. And I've been consistently getting better with Fusion for about a year.
Okay.
So I have 2 years worth of frustration with it, and one of those 2 years I've actually made progress.
Well, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So I got a question. So something that jumped out at me that you mentioned is hourly on print time. So that's new to me. So like when I was in retail, we billed hourly for the labor and the time combined. Obviously, it was different than a traditional, you know, tech hourly rate.
Yeah,
that's really interesting, and I like that print time hourly rate. That's not only is that like new to me, but that's eye opening. I think that's pretty awesome and pretty smart.
Yeah, we bill. The only thing we don't bill time on is our resin printer because it's slow, and I could never justify what that printer would actually cost if you were charging an hourly rate for it. So I think that for me, it's find a price, whatever you're printing. If you're printing it for someone or if you're printing it for a car or whatever, cover your resin and create a price that reflects the fact that you had to front the money for the printer, you know?
Yeah.
But resin printing for us has just been very small detail stuff. It's nothing major. There's people resin printing whole interiors, and I just can't see doing that because I don't want to outsource that and it have issues and whatever. But yeah, I mean, if we have 11 bamboo printers, and if they're running all day long, I mean, do the math at $20 an hour on 11 printers that run 20 hours a day, why wouldn't they make you money? We charge $120 an hour plus materials. So we're a time and materials shop. And robots' time is important,
I see them as employees, just because they're machines, they're still an employee.
It costs money to operate them, right? Just like it costs money to operate an employee.
Yeah,
so,
the CNC and the 3D printers we do machine time on. The laser, not really, because it's usually just for templating and stuff like that. And it's at this point, it's kind of like it's just a necessary tool to have because we're prototyping a lot of stuff, and we also have a CNC plasma, so that's cool. There's not a lot we don't have or can't do, so it's nice to be in a place where we have all of the things that we could possibly need to do our job. And if we don't have it, we'll get it.
Yeah,
and that's nice. Kind of the theme. And it's been really nice to have the support and the ownership that I have, because it's really, really, really hard to find that. And I just feel like I've gotten super lucky to be in the position I'm in.
That's awesome. Now,
so what is your official title?
Oh, sorry.
Shop manager and interior fabricator, I guess.
Okay. So do you run the entire shop, or you just run the upholstery division?
No. So me, I do project managing, hiring, firing, and I have another guy who runs the front, does all parts, customer service, and he also is managing people with me. Because, we have 12 people, and he's at the front of house, I'm at the back of house. So it just, we kind of meet.
So you're like a production manager kind of thing.
Sure.
Sort of. Okay, cool.
Now,
nice.
Do you have different computers running those different machines, like different workstations?
So I have my computer, and then I hired a guy named Jared Mitz, who people know. He's been with me since February. He has his laptop, and he runs everything's on the network, so we can do whatever we need to do with either computer. So
flexibility. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I was curious.
Yeah,
that's exciting. All those tools and machines and.
Yeah, and a lot of people get in their heads that having machines takes like the fun out of building, and it doesn't. Like you're not giving up building stuff. It's just different.
Yeah,
and
if I think about it differently.
Yeah, and there's still fit and finishing that has to happen. There's still like very real thought that has to go into this because you have to design it still. And to me, that's the more interesting part of all of this is the design of things. Jared's really good. And it's nice to have someone that, we can bounce ideas off of each other. Cause I didn't have that for the longest time. Most shops I've been at, I didn't have that. So it's nice to have someone that's good at fusion, that understands everything that's going on, and we can share ideas and bounce ideas back and forth, and I can help him, he can help me, and it just works.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
You made a comment. Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just saying that's awesome.
Yeah. You made a comment that I really like to hear is you said, with your ownership, if you don't have something and you need something, you're probably going to get it. You're just like, hey, we need this. Again, you probably have to sell it to a degree of why you need to invest in that. But so many times we've seen this where guys are I think back to the days of going to Mobile Solutions and guys sending their employees to these shop or to these trainings, and they come home with all this head full of ideas, right? And I'm sure you were one of them too.
Oh yeah,
I was.
Oh yeah.
And then you have nothing to apply all of that knowledge with.
Yep.
And unless you spend your own money to have that capability, it's good. You're going to lose it. I've seen so many guys that go and they come back and they're talking about the stuff they learned and they're showing all this stuff. And then in 6 months, you're like, hey, what are you doing with that? We don't, I couldn't get them to buy anything. We couldn't do this. We couldn't do that. And then they're like, I don't even remember half of what we did.
Well, yeah. In the first 15 years of my career, that's what I did. I bought my own router bits. I bought my own templates. I started buying templates from Brian in 2008. Yeah. And because I just wanted to have the things that were going to make my job better. I was no good, I don't feel like I was any good for the first 15 years of my career. But that's what drives me. That's what keeps me motivated. If you think you know everything and you don't have anything to learn, then you're not really any good to anybody.
Right.
And
being the smartest person in the room doesn't help you get anywhere.
And I have no interest in that, and where I'm at in my career now, I have enough old school analog fabrication under my belt to where, like, even with new school technology, sometimes you need to kind of incorporate both to get things to work great. And right, wrong, or
sometimes it's just faster.
Yeah, and right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm not going to redesign and reprint an entire part if I can just manipulate it a little bit, fill this, fill that, make a bracket, whatever I have to do. Like, there's, some people that are like, oh, I got to scrap this entire part. I don't have time for that. I don't have time or money for that. My customer's not going to pay for that. Okay. So it's nice to have the background that I do have in the struggle that I had doing it the hard way for so long, but I wouldn't trade that at all.
No.
At all.
I think it's important to have both.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I like seeing, with the growth of lasers and printers and all of that, one thing that I love to see in that is we're getting so far away from basic wood in vehicles, with the exception of enclosures. It's kind of still, I don't think that'll really ever fully go away.
No.
But amp racks made out of wood and speaker adapters and all these other weird little things, full dashes that were built out of wood.
Oh, I built plenty out of wood.
Right. And what happens to them over time? They all will disintegrate.
Yep.
They will deteriorate. Right. And I think back to that stuff and where we're going forward and how much, excuse me, it's almost like we're building more value as an industry into what we're creating, because plastic doesn't go away.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it can break, right? It can get brittle, it can break. But the chances of that happening versus an MDF dash being dried out in the sun, right? We've added value by adding technology.
Yep.
Not just that too, but like from a learning perspective, I think everyone has explored all the different materials out there, and that's a learning curve in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also expensive to figure it out.
It is. I think we're just, in the long run, creating more value. And when I say we create more value, it's not just a dollar, or value per dollar. It's value in relevance to keeping our industry going, because it has spent so long shrinking that even now I think it will stabilize, because there's more required to learn how to do this, so we can justify the cost.
Absolutely.
That, I see shops that are getting up to, $220, $250 an hour for labor.
Yeah. And, I don't necessarily disagree. If you can get it,
Right. If your market can bear that, sure.
Yeah. But I also know that there's probably a lot of people taking advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that line is really hard. Because we charge $120 an hour, and sometimes I think that things should take less time, but in reality, they just don't. What do I do? You know what I mean? It is what it is.
Sure.
And we're lucky enough to have the customers we have that just pay their bill, and 99.9% of them don't question anything, and it's nice, because this is what it takes to build a car these days. 20 years ago, building a $100,000 car was like this mind-blowing thing. I mean, now there's $300,000 interiors.
Yeah.
And a nice, a nice show car, $500,000.
Right.
That's nothing.
It's not unreasonable. Yeah. That's not change. Yeah.
That is normal,
Yeah.
And
I think the forgive me if I'm wrong, but I get the impression, just from my time in dealing with some of those older vehicles, the whole resto mod community of I want my old car, but I want modern features has driven a lot of that to the cost of what we have nowadays.
Absolutely. And the thing with it's hard too, because building whole cars is an entirely different thing. And because there's so many departments within that. And at my shop, all of the departments they all want like the best of the best, right? So if we have a customer that says, hey, we have $300,000 to build this car, we're probably going to turn it down because it's going to cost more than that. Right. And your budgetary issues are not my problem. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I just mean that we're probably not the shop for you because we bill hour per hour. We can't really give you a quote that we can stand by because the prices of things change. We get into something, maybe this car has more rust than anticipated. We don't know until you take all the paint off. Right. You know? And we have a car at the shop now that came to us ready to paint. Wet sanded primer, ready to paint. That whole car got stripped back down to metal. There was a crack on the quarter panel. The previous shop there was 3/4 of an inch of filler on that entire car. The entire car. 65 Mustang, all the body lines were gone. It looked like a swollen little puffy balloon.
Wow. That's crazy.
And it all started because there was a crack on the quarter panel where the factory lead seams were on the trunk.
Yeah.
So we cut all those out and we weld in sheet metal. We don't leave the lead. We don't fill it with Duraglass. So the previous shop filled that crevice with Duraglass and then just body worked the whole car, gapped everything in body filler. Didn't gap it in metal.
Whoa.
So the whole car it looked good. It looked good until you dug into it. But the whole car, I mean, minimum 1/2 inch in certain spots.
Stick a magnet up to it and it just falls right off.
What? Yeah. Magnets like what metal?
Yeah. That's crazy.
But the paint job would have been on us. If that bodywork failed or when it failed and we painted the car, we would have been responsible for that.
Right.
So now if we don't take your car down to bare metal, we're not painting it. Because that's the only thing that protects us.
Yep.
Right. That guarantees what you stand behind. I mean, it's like it's the same as shops saying, if you bring us a car that's already torn apart, we're not touching it.
Right.
Or if you started the install, if we don't start from the beginning, we won't do anything.
The only difference is the expense, the overall expense of a full-blown show car, 800-hour, bodywork paint job. 800 hours is a lot of money to spend on a paint job. That's probably a minimum of $80,000 in bodywork. But that's not abnormal. Charlie Hutton, one of the best painters, body guys on the planet, charges, $85 an hour, but his work is 800 to 1,000 hours.
Yeah.
And that's in prep,
Right. And that's before he even picks up the spray gun.
Because that's what's the most important,
Right.
And people just don't understand that. They lose their mind over the idea that there's a $15,000 paint job. And I was like, you have no idea. Our body work supplies on the job we're doing now are over $15,000.
Jeez.
I mean, the prices of things are insane right now.
Well, yeah. Yeah. So I was just thinking about that, like you were saying, that you don't have like this set price that you can give them because things change. Well, look at if you've had a vehicle that's been there since 2021 and it's 2024, inflation has caused huge price increases on things.
Yeah.
So
and to be honest with you, 3 to 5 years to build a car is not a long time. That's average. No. And two of the cars that are at the shop have been there for 3 years. Yeah. And it's just part of the process, because we're also a small shop. We don't have 30 guys working on cars every day,
Right.
We have very small departments. We have 1 wiring guy. We have 2 metal guys. We have 2 body guys. And we have 2 interior guys. And when you have 15 projects, I mean, we have more than 1 customer, so we can't just focus on 1 car.
Yeah, when you got that many vehicles and that few guys, I mean, shit's gonna wait.
Yeah,
shit's gonna sit. Shit's gonna get dusty.
And it does. And that's just part of the process. Because when I started there, 18 to 24 months was kind of the goal, but it just doesn't exist anymore. Not with full builds, because we're doing a lot of frame off stuff and even availability of parts. There's so much time in that at this point. post-COVID, that's just been a nightmare.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a whole different world, and it's 20 times the stress of a retail car audio shop because of the scale of things, you know, and the amount of departments you have, and the amount of different things that you have to figure out. And everybody has to be on the same page or it doesn't work. Yeah. Because if the metal guys aren't on the same page as the body guys have a lot more work to do, or, whatever it is. It's tough because there's a lot of people that just don't communicate. And there's a lot of things that just, there has to be over communication when it comes to building a car.
Sure.
And it's just such a large scale thing. And it's such a different world from car audio. So it's still new for me too. It's only been 3 years, but it's been very rewarding.
It's good.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. It's one of those things where, like, I'll just say this, like, going to the SEMA show every year, and I look at some of these builds, like, I forget what the paint company is. It's like DBASF, DBASF paint. BASF. There's a D somewhere in there, I think. But, like, the cars that are in that booth, oh my God, like, wow.
Yep.
It's crazy. So, like, to hear about the operations at where you're at, it's, everyone has to be cohesive. Everyone has to, talk to each other. In the back of my mind, while you guys are talking, I'm like, there's probably like a parts department for, like, hey, I need to order all these parts. And there's probably one or two people just sourcing parts, And at that point, it's like, this company's back ordered, but you might have another source, or you might know someone that knows someone. So I can only imagine what, the moving pieces, front of the house are, to make the back of the house.
Right. Well, when you get into, like, very niche cars like Lincoln Continentals and stuff like that, there's like 3 dudes to know. And I now know them because we have a Continental at the shop that's, a huge build. And I didn't know anything about those cars besides that they were a pain in the ass to work on. And started diving into where I can find parts. And I met this guy who knows this guy. And that's why our industry is so awesome, because the 2 guys that told me about this magical, Lincoln Continental parts guy are interior guys that I'm friends with on Facebook. I made a post and they were like, hey, talk to this guy. That guy has every part I've needed.
Wow.
For a car that's 60 years old.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
It's really cool to have the reach that I have because I have friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say that about, like, not just our industry, but the automotive industry in general. Like, we go back 20 years, we didn't have that reach, and that's, you have to, find a phone number or, drive somewhere, now it's like, the connection is there instantly. And, I will say this, our industry and the automotive industry in general has embraced that. And I think that's pretty awesome. And the same level of, like, how we've embraced machines.
Yep.
We're graduating up. And I think not just car audio, but, like, the whole automotive industry. I think we have that same mentality and focus of graduating up. And
and there used to be a lot of gatekeeping with trade secrets and techniques and this, that, or the other. And a lot of that's just kind of gone away, which has been really awesome because it needed to go away. You're not benefiting the industry gatekeeping a bunch of secrets that really aren't yours in the first place,
Right. You didn't think, 95% of the time, you didn't make that up.
Yeah, and I'm not
learned it or stole it from somebody else.
Yeah, and I'm not going to take credit from the people that did implement this and make this a thing and make it a teachable moment, because I think that's awesome. But a lot of the stuff that we're doing is very unique to our industry. But a lot of it is also just woodworking,
right?
And if you're not a woodworker or you don't come from a woodworking background, you wouldn't know any of that, But some of the router bits and stuff now we're very specific to our industry, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, with that mentality, like, I got to ask you, we were just talking about leveling up and learning and growing and as I called it, graduating. Your participation in our industry awards for car audio, for mobile electronics, how did that help you kind of paved the way to where you got to the point where you were a Installer of the Year finalist?
I think that the biggest thing that I have always gained out of going to the awards, Knowledge Fest, whatever, was being around the right people and being in a room with the people that are better than me, and that was kind of the place where everybody met up, everybody went and, caused a bunch of shit, had a bunch of fun, drank too much, whatever it was, but it was always the experience. And certain classes obviously piqued my interest. So for me, it was always just the place to go get to see my friends. And it was the place where I can, go ask the questions that I wanted to ask to certain people or whatever it was. So I think that there's always going to be a place for large groups of industry people to come together.
Yeah, I think it's important to, surround yourself around people that want, mutually the best, for growth and have the best interest for you. It's one of those things where, the first time I met some of these people that I've always looked up to, it was mind blowing. And, like you say, now that you're able to call them friends, now that, even Brian does the same thing, I do the same thing. Yeah. It's encouraging and it's uplifting. And, for me, like, even though I feel like, I don't bring that much to the industry, when people do approach me, I'm willing 110% to give that back just because I was a recipient of it. And I think we all have been. So it's always, to me, rewarding to give that back.
Right.
I think that's awesome. And, going to these events and surrounding yourself around everyone, now you have these networks, these connections, these friends for life, that allow you to grow together. And I think that's awesome.
And some of the people that I talk to the most, I've never even met in person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some of the people that have helped me the most, I've never met in person.
Yeah.
But
that was me for a long time.
Yeah. But that also just proves how passionate and driven our industry is to make friends with people that just because you have similar interests,
Yeah. Right.
And it's something that you can bond over, talk about, get questions answered, because I don't care who you are. If you don't want to help someone, you're not really any good.
Right.
Like if you don't have the desire to help the industry, help people, and I will never tell you that I'm in a position to be helping anyone, but I get a lot of questions. People ask me a lot of questions just based on the stuff I post, and I try to answer all of them. So I just hope that, because I came from not having a lot of help and not having a lot of interaction because of the gatekeeping and just because social media really wasn't a thing at the time.
Right.
To almost, making sure that I reach back out to people and try to answer questions and whatever, because I know how frustrating it is to be in a position where you can't get the help that you need.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to be the reason someone didn't get the help that they needed. And if I don't know, I'll find out.
Right. Right.
Or at least point them in a direction.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know the answer, but I know this guy, you might try reaching out to him.
Yep.
Right. Those kind of things are awesome.
Yep.
Right. So I'm gonna add another layer to what I was asking you, Justin. So Installer of the Year finalists, I know that's an awesome feeling, and I think many aspire to be in that, and they're constantly chasing it. I think that's awesome. So first, I'll say congrats for being a Installer of the Year finalist, but even more so, congrats on a more recent award that you got. So I gotta assume that, the constant growth, the constant, pushing yourself and driving yourself to, I think it was a Fabricator of the Year recently.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
what was that journey like from, IOTY finalist to that award?
So I think my Installer of the Year, my last top 12, I think was in 2019. So right before COVID. And then once COVID happened, I think things just got weird in general. And I was just kind of over competing to prove myself. You know what I mean? I wasn't trying to prove anything to anybody but myself. And I didn't need to do that anymore, So I think I just felt like this is how far I got. I'm happy with it. You know, I've been in some form of top 50, top 100 something since like 2007.
Wow.
I think was my first one when Reps nominated you. So I've been around that a lot, and there's always that little part of me was like, man, like this is so frustrating. Like I'm so close, but there's just always somebody better than me, right? And I think it just got to a point where like I was sick of feeling bad about that, you know? So I think that I took the wins that I had and I felt good about them, you
That's
know?
all. Yeah, I think we all should.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that with my latest award, all I can honestly say is I really feel like I fucking earned it.
And you did,
you know,
100%. You know, like I told you in the beginning, I watch, some of your posts and builds, and dude, it's unreal. It's crazy. Like how you do it, I don't know, but it's effing awesome.
I think that for me, it solidified a lot of hard work. But also just being in the room with the right people, talking to the right people, being around the right people, learning the right stuff. I think that it did a lot for, because I'm so hard on myself, I think it did a lot for my mental health in that it kind of was the carrot on the stick. And I feel like I finally got the award or the type of award that I've wanted to get, to just make this entire career choice kind of feel like it was worth it, and not to say
validate the hard work and the effort.
Sure. And not that like it wasn't validated because, I have friends that tell me that I'm doing this, that, or the other, and it's inspiring or whatever, but it was just something that was actually recognized, whether or not other people agree with it, whether I should have won, not won, whatever it is. But this year I did, so it doesn't really matter, Yeah. And I appreciate it. And I think that it's just going to drive me to do better and more,
that's important, seeing, your journey, all I see is growth. And I think you see that too. And I think, it's exciting to see what, the next, batch of growth is going to be. I think we should all aspire to, mirror that. I push myself the same way. I don't like to stay stagnant, but, definitely from a fabricator installer perspective, I think there's a lot more, being critical and, sometimes you may hit that wall, but it's what you do to pull yourself through and grow. I think your growth has been awesome, and rightfully so on all the awards and accolades. It's just, for me, the exciting part is, what's next,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned earlier, maybe this was before we were actually live, but we were talking about it's like rewarding when the jobs are done.
Yeah.
The downside to being in a hot rod shop that takes several years to finish a car, it's been a while since I've been rewarded with something being done.
But then do you miss it, right? Like you've been on that project for so long.
Well,
it's almost like it's yours at some point, right?
Yeah, but the problem with that is there's so much growth that has happened in the last 3 years. I'm looking back at things that I've built. And I'm like, what was I thinking? Can I redo this? Okay. Is there money to redo this? No, there's no money to redo this. Okay, better luck next time.
Right.
But I like right now we have 7 interior jobs at the shop.
Jeez.
And some of them are small. Some of them are very, very, very big, but they're accompanied with full frame off restorations.
Right.
Or frame off builds. Yeah. So they get 60, 70% until the car's more complete, and then they can be finalized and dialed in.
Okay.
So there's just a lot of stuff. And imagine having 8 cars worth of interior parts. They got to be organized. They got to go somewhere,
Right.
And it's tough to keep track of small parts and this, that, or the other. But we have, a pallet racking system with everything's labeled, but it's still difficult. There's still a lot going on, and it makes the drive to finish something that much better. because it's been so long.
You want to see it done.
Yeah.
So getting into that, my curiosity is this, and I don't want to know what the best install you ever did was, or the best build you ever did. I want to know what your favorite one was. Like that one that you will always think, no matter how good or bad you look at it now, but the one that you remember you had, like when you were done, you were like, oh my God. And in the process, you may have, it just made you feel good to build that project. There's a lot, so I know that's probably really hard to pick one.
No, what's funny is like, yes, there's been a lot of builds, but this is where like the overly critical part of me happens. I can't tell you. I can tell you with all honesty, I cannot think of a single build where I was like, looks fucking great. Not one. Because every time I'm in the middle of something or I'll finish it and I'll be like, that could be better. I should have done this.
We all do that though.
I know.
All, right.
Okay. So the Blazer that I did 2 years ago, it was a 94 two-door Blazer. Full interior. Probably the biggest job. That was probably the biggest job I've ever done. No 3D printing. It was all machine parts and laser parts. I would say that 75% of that build I'm absolutely in love with. 25%, not so much. Not that the work is bad. It's just I could have put a little more thought into the overall, aesthetic or design of certain parts. But I did really enjoy that, especially since it's a bone stock exterior car that has sentimental value for the owner. He was like, I've had this car since my dad had this car. I've had it since I was a kid. And he was like, I just want to, build this really nice. So we built a very, very, very expensive 94 Blazer for this guy.
So was it like comfort and styling, or was it like modern tech, or all of it?
All of it. So
Okay.
the exterior, so it came to us originally just for an interior. And then it turned into interior wiring, and then it turned into interior wiring, full paint job. So it's got a new body style Cadillac Escalade pearl white paint job, 16-inch bare brakes, LS swap. The interior is very modern, but looks like it could have come in that truck in 94, I think, with the exception of some of the tech.
Sure.
Brian, you saw it, didn't you? It's brown and tan. Has a pretty ridiculous audio system in it. But I was proud of that,
Okay.
There's, looking back, there's definitely some things that I would change. And now that printing is a thing, there's a lot that I would change.
Right.
I did some doors on a Corvette for a shop down in Alabama that we do some work for, that went to SEMA. It's a LT4 swapped 63 split window, I believe.
Ooh.
Beautiful car.
Very nice car.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of little stuff that I really like. Oh, you know what? I'll tell you exactly what it was. So I was at Titan, and this is going to sound really stupid because this is ridiculous, but so this is one of my favorite stories to tell because I was right and I love it. So had a customer come in and wanted a cup holder in his 911, right? And the only spot was in the lid of the armrest on the console. So I got asked how long to do this. And I said, if you want it to look like it came that way, 8 hours. And they kind of laughed at me like, I don't understand how you can justify putting a cup holder in this lid for 8 hours labor. So long story short, it looks like it belongs there. I mimicked some of the dash grill and just some of the little design cues from the car. It mechanically fastens through the actual lid. Just looked right? So I'm not going to name any names, but the shop manager at the time, the only compliment that I never got a compliment from him at any of the work I did. The only compliment that I knew I got from him was when I was all said and done, and he looks at it and he was like, when I get a 911, will you make one for me? And I'm like, okay, that's the compliment that I'm going to get from you. That I get that that's where we're at, right? But for me, it was the most perfect piece, right? It looked like Tom Miller would have built it, because everything Tom does is perfect. It's something that Tom could have designed and built. And I took a lot of pride in that because Tom didn't build it,
Right.
But there was a lot of influence from Tom, I love that dude. That dude's style is absolutely insane. And he's one of my absolute favorite people on the planet. And I took a lot of cues from the way that he designs things to build that. So I absolutely love that one little 8-hour piece.
That's awesome.
Good. That's what I'm looking for when I ask a question like that. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be over the top. Just that one little.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So,
Oh, and the guy ended up wrecking the 911 and got a 718, but it has the same lid. So I just swapped the little 911 bag, swapped lids. Perfect.
Nice. So you got to carry on with that piece.
Yep.
Perfect.
So I got to ask, this is my favorite question, just because I'm all for helping everyone.
Yep.
And I'm big on that. Just because, just like you, in my early years in the industry, I really had to scavenger for any type of help, if any, right?
Yep.
So for me, helping everyone is always like a big thing for me. And from you to the industry, what are some words of encouragement for anyone wanting to participate, or maybe thinking about, should I do it again? Regardless of what the scenario is, what are some words of encouragement that you would like to share for anyone wanting to participate in the awards?
Do it. I mean, I don't think that there's any reason not to. I think that whether you win or lose, you're in a competition with people that are like-minded. You're in a competition with people that hopefully also want the best for you. And I think that it will do absolutely nothing but bring value to you, your shop. Whether you win, don't win, none of that matters, But I think for me personally, it would all stem back to just being around the right people, and because of the awards, I've always been able to be around my friends. It's once a year. It was this big shindig, but that was my favorite part about the whole thing. It brought a bunch of people together.
Yeah.
So I say do it. I don't think there's any reason not to.
Yeah. And, your friends will always pick you up and want you to grow.
Yep.
I think, and Brian, you could probably attest to this too. One thing that I've observed with all the finalists in all the different categories is they pull together, they band together, and it's like you're forming a little, friend circle, and I think that's awesome, because the camaraderie within the industry is, to me, important.
Absolutely.
And, like you say, you're going to surround yourself around the right people, and, that's only going to help you unlock your growth.
Yeah.
The way you believe it should be done, and how your friends in your circle believe in you that you should accomplish it. So
I fully believe that, like Brian said earlier, like, you don't want to be the smartest one in the room. And I think that I go into any room like I'm the dumbest one, because I'm going to learn something from somebody, and I think that for me, at this point in my career, I'll go to trainings, I'll do what I can do. But for me, I think that I am going to start going outside of like traditional training, and I'm going to go spend time with people that I know are where I want to be. So I have a trip planned to go do that, which is just kind of the next step of where I'm at, is to go sit down face to face with some people that are better than me in this industry, right? And I can learn from, and they're, happy to have me come hang out for a week. And so I think that just any level of growth you can get, whether it's in basic, like watching Mark, Car Audio Fab Mark, and watching his videos and learning from that. I know so many people that have gotten into car audio because of Mark. and gotten into car audio because Mark is very well spoken, and the way that he explains things makes sense, and it definitely hits on the DIY guys, and it drives people to want to be part of this industry. And I think that's awesome. And it's getting progressively harder to find people to bring into this industry.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that any sort of training you can get, and I use the word training loosely, any sort of learning you can get, I think is super important. And now that I'm involved in Fusion and things like that and 3D modeling, there's so much information and training on YouTube. It's insane because there's 9-year-olds that make me look like I shouldn't even be sitting on a computer. I'm just saying.
I mean, it's not unreasonable. I mean, there's jokes all the time about parents that if they need something done on their phone, they ask their kids, right? Or, I mean, there's so much out there. And, it's funny you mentioned Mark because I didn't know how to feel about Mark for a long time, right? And when you mentioned that, you just said that, and somebody else had said something about it one time, a long time ago. He's so well spoken, and he speaks on a level that I can't get there. Nope. I think up here like you think up here, right? Like we all think at these levels, but he approaches it because he was never somebody that had to learn to think at that level,
right,
to earn his paycheck, right? So he was the guy, he was a DIY guy that just started learning how to do a lot of what we learned how to do, but he was able to speak to, like you said, to the DIY guys on a level that they all understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all levels of learning are needed.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And when you think about that for our industry and people coming into our industry, how often do we actually have people in a shop that can talk to newbies on that level?
Right. Because
we're all already so focused on this.
Well, I struggle with that, right? Like I have a dude that I hired from Atlanta that, was super green in the wood shop, but he's driven and he wants to learn. Mm-hmm. But I also realized that like I can teach you how to do something. I probably can't explain it very well. I can show you how to do it, but I probably can't tell you how to do it very well. Like I just don't like listening to Mark talk. Like he's just good at talking to people, and he's good at explaining things, and and maybe it's because he's an engineer and like he's just up here and I'm not quite up there. And, he's just got a level of smarts that just, does him really well when it comes to the way that he explains things. And I listen to some of his videos, and as redundant as they are in my head, because I know the process, he explains things in a way that makes me want to listen to him more.
Okay.
And I think that is huge for people that don't necessarily have the knowledge and information that some of us have when it comes to learning things, because he makes it so crystal clear because he does explain everything so well. Yeah. And I just don't have that at all.
Yeah. I want to step back onto something that you brought up earlier, and I'll kind of give a little story about it. But you talked about like the gatekeeping thing, right? And in my early years, I started in the 80s, and in the 90s, I was in a shop where nobody was going to teach me shit. Like I was competing against my own coworkers, for work. And so for me to learn how to fiberglass, I had to go to a boat shop and learn how to fiberglass. I had to go learn, certain techniques of woodworking from guys that did woodworking. Nobody was teaching me anything, right? So there was a time a while back, Schaefer was, doing all the videos with carbon fiber and teaching all this stuff. And
I think that was like 2011.
2011, 2012, whatever it was. And I was just like, why are you doing videos that show everything? Like I didn't understand, because I still had some of that gatekeeper mentality. Like, because that was still what was taught. You can't give away everything, right? And he said something to me that has stuck with me ever since. He said, you can teach every single step of a process to someone. They can have all of that information, What they do with it is up to them. Because you could give them all the knowledge, they're either not going to be willing to commit the time, or they're not going to be willing to commit the investment in tooling and whatever you need supplies-wise to complete the process.
Right.
They might get part of the way there on one part and part of the way on another part, but they'll never get all three unless they are really committed to learning how to do it.
Right.
And ever since then, it's gone. Like I'm willing to give anyone in the industry everything I could give them about a topic, because then it's up to them to do it.
Yep.
And they'll either sink or swim.
And Matt is one of those guys where if he's gonna learn something, he's gonna learn it.
Right.
That guy,
he's all in.
He's all in. So there's something that I learned from him is if he's gonna do, like, I think he shares a story about his first top 50 video where production of the video was not the best, but man, did he take a full swing at cracking at video editing and recording. And I mean, we've all seen his, movie, call it movie. Let's not call it, submission video. It's basically a production, video, and it's great.
Yeah.
So it's a testament to Matt.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this has been great. I love the growth subject and surrounding yourself around friends. I think that's more people need to do that.
I just think it's necessary. You know what I mean? I just think that you're
right.
Like it's not even a question for me. I want to be around the best people.
Yeah.
I want to be around. I mean, obviously, I want them to be around me too. But I think that that's kind of the next step, is to just make sure that you're around the right people. And if you have somebody that's got their foot on your head, like, you don't need to be around them.
No.
If it's your boss, you need to quit. Move somewhere else. There's jobs out there. There's people hiring. And there's
all over the place. I mean, we see it all over the place.
They're stuck in shops complaining about their owners and their managers that there's no growth, there's no this, there's no that, but you don't want to move out of your hometown. That's kind of your problem.
Yeah, there's plenty of owners that are willing to take that next step and grow. And I know that's oftentimes for owners or managers, that's a huge leap or step out of their comfort zone, but it's a necessary evil sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Something that you said earlier, I wrote down on my notes here. You were talking about, taking a step back at some point in your journey, but I feel like sometimes we have to self-reflect and be willing to take a step back, because not only are we going to do something about it, but it's going to make your drive just so much more, you're going to be more hungry for it. And the end result will be fulfilling. And I think, you're a testament to that, where you're at now. And, I'm more excited for, what's next. But it's one of those things where I tell everyone, be willing to be critical on yourself and to a certain degree, be a little hard on yourself, but do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely my motivation, like I'm hard on myself because I think that I have to be, and it does nothing but motivate me, so.
That's awesome. I think this will influence a lot of people in that aspect. I think it's strong. I love it. So
yeah,
awesome.
I could sit and talk for days, Justin.
Yep.
We're getting up on our time here, so I want to thank you for taking an hour and 15 minutes of your day. Sorry, it was a long one, and we just stretched out a little bit, but
it's all good.
I appreciate you taking time to sit down with us.
Of course.
And man, it's always good to talk with guys like you, because the stories and the information that you guys, everybody has a little bit different take on something, and it's helpful for everyone to take the time to spend an hour and watch this. And it's like when we go. I think of this like when we go to class, right? Or we go to a training. At our point, at our stage in where we're at, rarely do we have these giant aha moments. We take little pieces.
Yep.
Right? Brian always called them little nuggets.
Little nuggets.
You take little nuggets, and then you take all of those little nuggets that you pick up from different places and you make them your. That becomes your circle, right? Yep. All those little nuggets become how you do what you do, and that's how you create the you of Justin Marks or Brian Piper or Alex.
Yep.
And so all of these little nuggets from everybody, and you take a little bit here and there and you make something out of it.
I'm just a firm believer in investing in yourself and investing in your future and investing in training and tools and techniques. And to me, it's a no-brainer, and it took me a long time to be able to afford it. It took me a long time to be comfortable with taking the time off work. But now I look forward to it all the time. I just got back from Mobile Solutions and it was great. For me, it's just, it's a breath of fresh air to be out there. And to me, it's just one of those situations that has been huge in my career and something that I, massively respect. And I think that
goes back to putting you in the room with guys that can level you up.
100%.
Yeah.
Here's another flip side to that, though. I think you guys will agree with this. Pushing yourself to be able to give back to others also levels you up.
Yeah, like the last 2 times I've been out there, I helped teach a class, which was really cool because I was on the other side of it for a change. And it's just a different perspective, but I enjoy being in that position,
Yeah.
And I think that it was nice because the last class we did was a bunch of trimmers and a bunch of upholstery guys, and it was virtually no car audio guys, which I thought was awesome because it was a whole different group of people with completely different mindsets. And showing them new techniques and ways to do things was mind-blowing to them. It's how we built things for a decade, but it was mind-blowing to them. And it was just a really cool experience to be around a whole new group of people that have an interest in learning that type of fabrication.
Yeah,
absolutely, man.
Always be learning. That's how I see it. Cause we're a bunch of car audio guys, right? But there's always more,
Absolutely.
There's always more.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Justin, thank you so much, man. We're gonna get out of here and go have a Friday, and everybody enjoy your evening and your weekend. And to everyone watching, thank you for joining us. We will be back soon with another episode. But again, Justin, Nubs. Nubs.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, man.